Volatility is terrific. I think these callers are very important. I don't think the market going up 80 points one day and down 80 the next is a good thing for the public. I think that's not a very good thing. I remember when in 1972 the market went from down dramatically, and Taco Bell went from 14 to 1. They had no debt. They never had a restaurant close, and I started buying at 7, but I kept on to it, and it went to 1. And it was the largest position in Magellan in 1978 when it was bought out by $42 by Pepsi-Cola, and I think it would have gone to 400 if they didn't buy it out. I think volatility is terrific. I think these callers are very important. I don't think the market going up 80 points one day and down 80 the next is a good thing for the public. I think that's not a very good thing. But the market's going to go up and down. Human nature hasn't changed a lot in 25,000 years. And some event will come out of left field, and the market will go down or the market will go up. So volatility will occur, and markets will continue to have these ups and downs. I think that's a great opportunity if people can understand what they own. If they don't understand what they own, they can own mutual funds. Try to figure out mutual funds they own and keep adding to it. That's all you need to know. You need to know the market's going to go down sometime. If you're not ready for that, you shouldn't own stocks. And it's good when it happens. If you like a stock at 14 and it goes to 6, that's great. You understand the company, you look at the balance sheet, and they're doing fine. You're hoping to get to 22 with it. 14 to 22 is terrific. 6 to 22 is exceptional. So you take advantage of these declines. They're going to happen. No one knows when they're going to happen. So you can take advantage of the volatility in the market if you understand what you own. Basically, corporate profits have grown about 8% a year historically. So corporate profits double about every 9 years. The stock market ought to double about every 9 years. So there's always something to worry about, and the key organ in your body in the stock market is your stomach. It's not the brain. It's your stomach. It's not the brain. It's your stomach. It's not the brain. One of the things I find a couple of rules I want to throw out that I find useful, excuse me, is a lot of times people buy on the basis the stock has gone down this much. How much further can it go down? If you didn't understand the company, if you're just buying on the fact the stock had gone from 26 to 16 and then it went to 10, what would you do when it went to 9? What would you do when it went to 8? What would you do when it went to 7? This is the problem that people have, is they sell stocks because they didn't know why they bought it, then it went down, and they don't know what to do now. Do you flip a coin? Do you walk around the block? What do you do? Psychiatrists haven't worked so far. I've never seen them running in. The psychological psychiatry fund I've never seen listed for with the SEC to make it through as a mutual fund. So they haven't seemed to help. I've tried prayer. That hasn't worked. So if you don't understand the company, you have this problem when they go down. Eventually, they always come back. This one doesn't work either. People saying it'll come back. Well, it doesn't have to come back. Here's another one you hear all the time. It's $3. How much can I lose? I've had people call me up saying, I'm thinking of buying this stock at 3. How much can I lose? Well, again, you may need a piece of paper for this, but if you put if you put $20,000 in a stock at 50, or your neighbor put $20,000 at 50 into the stock, and you put $20,000 in at 3, and it goes to 0, you lose exactly the same amount of money. Everything. And people say it's 3. How much can I lose? Well, if you put $1 million on it, you can lose $1 million. Just the fact that stock, this may be a reason to research a stock. The fact that stock is 3 down from 100 doesn't mean you should buy it. And in fact, short sellers, people that really make money in stocks, they don't short Walmart, they don't short Home Depot, they don't short the great companies, Johnson & Johnson. And they're selling it short at 7, they're selling it short at 6, at 5, at 4, at 3, at 2, at 1 1/4. And you know to sell something short, you need a buyer. Somebody has to buy the damn thing. And you wonder, who's buying this thing? It's these people saying it's 3. How much lower can it go? Now, here's a subject that you probably all talked about. Getting close. Getting close. All right, we'll drop that one out. It's getting very close, so everybody has to go somewhere. So the important thing is you can't get too attached to a stock. You have to understand there's a company behind it. You can't treat this like your grandchildren. You have to deal with the stock and say, I understand the company, and if it deteriorates, if the fundamentals slip, you have to say goodbye to it. If one rule you want to remember is, the stock does not know you own it. This is a breakthrough. So don't get, you have to understand it and say, they're doing well, and as long as they keep doing well, my best stocks have been my 5th, 6th, 7th year I own them, not my 5th, 6th, 7th day. So you have to understand that and stay with it. And then I'll switch through to my long shots. Avoid long shots. I bought about 30 long shots in my life. I've never broken even on one. The ones that are really bad are what we call whisper stocks. And if Arthur Levitt was here, he'd appreciate these stories. But these are the times that somebody calls you up and say, hi, Peter, how's Carolyn, how are the kids? And I'd like to talk to you about International Blivet. And what they have in this company is very good about the earnings. Earnings going to be they're going to be big, small. $3, $1 a share. And they keep whispering. They say, what are you talking about? I don't understand it. And these are, now either they're so surrounded by people that are going to run out and buy this stock because it's so exciting, or they think the SEC's listening in. They'll get a shorter term. They'll get 6 months in the camp rather than 2 years in the camp. But whisper stocks don't work. And then I want to conclude with there's always something to worry about. If you own stocks, there's always something to worry about. You can't get away from it. What happens in the 50s, people were worried about the only reason we got out of the Depression was World War II. We got another recession. In the early 50s, they said we're going to go right back into a depression. People were worried about a depression in the 50s, and they worried about nuclear war. I mean, back then, the little warheads they had then, they couldn't blow up McLean, West Virginia, or McLean, Virginia, or Charlestown. Worries about when I was a kid, people were building fallout shelters, and we used to have this civil defense drill. Remember this one in high school? You get under your desk. I never thought even then that was a particularly good thing to do. They'd blow us, somebody put on a hat, we'd all get under our desk. But in the 50s, people wouldn't buy stocks, except for the 80s. The 50s was the best decade, this century of the stock market. And people wouldn't buy stocks in the 50s because they're worried about nuclear war and they're worried about depression. Then people, remember when oil went from 4 to 40 and it was going to go to 100 and we're going to have a depression? Remember that one? Well, about 3 years later, the same experts, now higher paid, oil's now at 10, and they said it was going to go to 4, and we're going to have a depression. And then the Japanese, remember how the Japanese were going to own the world? Remember that one? And that we're going to have a depression? And then about 2 years later, we're all worried about Japan collapsing. And this is the most absurd thing I've ever heard. There's a company with a 20% savings rate, incredible workforce, incredible productivity, and people are saying we're going to have a depression because Japan's going to collapse. And they had, you know, on their prayer list, they lowered Mother Teresa and crippled children, and they were praying for Japan at night. You know, it's unbelievable. I mean, the LDC debt. Remember the LDC debt? Remember that one? All these countries, all Chase had lent their net worth to Brazil, Chile, Peru, and all these other countries, and Soviet, and all the other countries. And LD said they were not going to pay it back, and we're going to have a depression. It always ends, and we're going to have a depression, or the Great Depression. We're going to have the Great Depression. I never could quite understand that adjective in front of depression, but the Great Depression, or the big one. The big one's coming. But all these countries, and now I understand. You know, these are called then they were called less developed countries. Now we used to call them underdeveloped countries. Those are all wrong terms. Those are not politically correct. You have to call these emerging countries. You can't use less developed or underdeveloped because that's. In fact, the other day I heard the politically correct term for somebody that's overweight is laterally challenged. That's so there's always something to worry about, and the key organ in your body in the stock market is your stomach. It's not the brain. If you can add 8 and 8 and get reasonably close to 16, that's the only level of math you need to know. You don't know to need the area under the curve. Remember that quadratic equation and an integral calculus and the area under the curve. I mean, whoever cared what was under the damn curve? I mean, you know, but you had to study this. You don't need this in the stock market. So all you have to know is you're going to see, it's always going to be scary. There's going to be always something to worry about. And you just have to forget all about it. Cut it all out and own good companies or own turnarounds. Study them and you'll do well. And that's all there is. And I'm ready for questions.
Okay, thank you very much. When managing a portfolio, do you pay much attention to the activities of Congress and the regulators?
Did Ed Markey put this one up? I'm not sure. I spend zero time thinking about what's happening down here in Washington, and I spend little time thinking what's going on in Russia or China. I just deal with facts. When the economy's going down, when the economy's going the wrong way, I can deal with that. So I don't deal with what's happening in Congress or what's going to happen in the future. I just deal with what's happening in the economy and what's happening in the companies I call.
Thank you. How useful is the financial reporting in the general daily press to you, and how useful should it be to investors in general?
Okay. It has improved dramatically, not just in the press, but also company reporting. 10 years ago, companies didn't have interim balance sheets. It's hard to imagine. They only gave their balance sheet to you once a year. Now they show you quarterly what's happening in their inventories, what's happening in receivables. In the major newspapers, they'll even show types of funds. There are now, I think there's 2,500 companies in the New York Stock Exchange. There's over 5,000 different mutual funds. So there's twice as many mutual funds as there are stocks. At least in the paper day, explains what kind of fund this fund is. So I think reporting has improved. They report earnings. But again, I think if you own auto stocks, you shouldn't be reading the financial part of the newspaper. On Wednesday, the local newspaper, Tuesday some places, or on Saturday, they have a whole 4 pages on automobiles. And they talk about new models. And they say this one stinks and this one's outstanding. They really, if you own auto stocks, that's the part of the newspaper you should be in. You shouldn't be calling your broker 4 times a day to get stock quotes. It doesn't work. Getting up in the morning to look to see how your stock did yesterday is not useful. All this stuff is just a waste of time. If you're adding up how much your stocks are worth, absolute waste of time. You should be looking at the company when you get the quarterly reports, the minutia of today. You're dealing, what's this company doing 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years from now? And if you're dealing with a cyclical and business is turning around, you wait for signs that business is slowing down. And when you see it, you move on to something else.
Are you concerned about the volatility in the financial markets today? Do you think something needs to be done to reduce it?
I love volatility. I remember when in 1972 the market went from down dramatically, and Taco Bell went from 14 to 1. They had no debt. They never had a restaurant close. And I started buying at 7, but I kept onto it, and it went to 1. And it was the largest position in Magellan in 1978 when it was bought out by $42 by Pepsi-Cola. And I think it would have gone to 400 if they didn't buy it out. I think volatility is terrific. I think it is I think these callers are very important. I don't think the market going up 80 points one day and down 80 the next is a good thing for the public. I think that's not a very good thing. But I think all these callers and all these other things, to keep the volatility down each day is important. But the market's going to go up and down. Human nature hasn't changed a lot in 25,000 years. And some event will come out of left field, and the market will go down or the market will go up. So volatility will occur, and markets will continue to have these ups and downs. I think that's a great opportunity if people can understand what they own. If they don't understand what they own, they can own mutual funds, try and figure out mutual funds they own, and keep adding to it. Basically, corporate profits have grown about 8% a year historically. So corporate profits double about every 9 years. The stock market ought to double about every 9 years. So I think the next market's about 3,800 today, 3,700. I'm pretty convinced the next 3,800 points will be up. It won't be down. The next 500 points, the next 600 points, I don't know which way they're going. So the market ought to double in the next 8 or 9 years. It ought to double again in the 8 or 9 years after that. Because profits will go up 8% a year, and stocks will fall. That's all there is to it.